So I have done the basic configuration, okay, that we have already done that day. So I have created a loopback addresses on all the routers. I have advertised all these routers into OSPF single area. Okay. Now when I go on R1 and if I check my neighborship, so if I go on R1 and if I check my neighborship, so if I give command show IP OSPF neighbor. So it will give me 2.2.2.2 as my neighbor. Okay, but now my requirement is that I want uh, R1 and R4. R1 and R4 should form a neighborship. R1 and R4 should form the neighborship in between them. Okay, and it should be with a GRE tunnel, GRE and secured with IPsec. It should be inside a GRE tunnel and it should be secure with IPsec. So I will configure the same thing. I want R1 and R4 should be neighbors. When I am seeing R1's routing table, or you can say the neighbor table, I am getting 2.2.2.2 only as my neighbor. I want 4.4.4.4 also as my neighbor. Same if I go on R4 also and if I check R4's routing table, R4's neighbor table also, show IPOSPF neighbors. I'm getting 3.3.3.3. Okay. Now my task is to create a GRE IPsec GRE over IPsec tunnel between R1 and R4. Between R1 and R4. So we have seen that day that why GRE is used and what is the drawbacks of GRE. Okay. And what are the advantages of IPsec and what are the disadvantages of IPsec. So when we combine both the things, GRE and IPsec, we will get a better authentication scenario and better integrity things. Okay, so we will start the practical, we will start the configuration. We were not having some commands that were not there in the GNS3. So that is the reason we were unable to complete the configurations. So now the first thing that I have to do, I have to create a tunnel, interface tunnel. I have given the tunnel name 1. I have to assign the tunnel an IP address. IP address. IP address I will give 192.168.0.1 slash 30 slash 30. Okay. I have created an tunnel. Now what I will do, I will assign tunnel source and tunnel destination. So my tunnel source is Ethernet 0/0. Tunnel source is Ethernet 0/0.
This is on router one, right?
Yes, just a second. I'll mark also. It is not giving me. This is on router 1. I am configuring the things on router 1. Okay. So on router 1, this is my source, Ethernet 0/0. And this address will be the address that is configured over here on Ethernet 0/2 will be my destination. Okay. So I have given the source as Ethernet 0/0. Then I will give the tunnel destination. The tunnel destination is what? IP address. What is the IP address? 198.51.100.2 and show IP. Okay, so I have made a tunnel. The same tunnel I have to go and make it on R4 as well. Okay, so I will say interface tunnel 1, I will say IP address 192.168.1.2 or 0. I think so. I have given 0.2 255.252 slash 30. Then no need to give no shut because it is a logical interface. Then I will give the source. Now my source is on R4, my source is this interface and my destination is this IP over here. Okay, so my source over here is Ethernet 0/2 and tunnel destination over here is 192.0.2.1. Now to verify I can see show IP interface brief. I will get a tunnel interface. This is R4. This is R4. I'm seeing on R4. If you want, you can change the name also. Host name I will change R4. Okay. So I am verifying it on R4. I got a tunnel interface which is having the IP address as 192.168.0.2. Okay. And the interface is up. Same on R1. R1. I can say show IP interface brief. I'm having a tunnel 1 interface with the IP address 192.168.0.1. Okay. Now I have configured the basic GRE tunnel. I have configured the basic GRE tunnel. Now what I want that this GRE tunnel should be secured by IPsec. Okay, secured with IPsec encryption, you can say. So what I will do, see the commands carefully. First I have to create a policy. I will create a policy, ISEC MP policy, create crypto ISEC MP policy. I will give any number, suppose I give 5, crypto ISEC MP policy 5. I am inside the policy. I have to select the encryption AES, then I'll say 256. Okay, then I'll say group. Which group? I have to select the group. The group I will select is uh, group number 2, 1024 bit, 1024. Defi Hellman group number 2. So I have selected the group number 2. Now I have to say, I have to create a key. I have to create a key for this ISEC MP policy. So I have crypto ISEC MP key, then the key, any name, any word, any key name. I will say Cisco is my key. Address. See, what is this address? Peer IP address. Peer IP address means this key will be for which address? So I will say it will be for any address with any destination. This key will be for any IP address with any subnet mask, you can say. Subnet mask. Okay. Now I will create an transform set. I will create an transform set. Crypto IPsec transform set. Transform set name. I will give a name to the transform set. Suppose I gave a name to the transform set as Cisco 1. Okay. Then I have to select the algorithm that will be selected, that it should select, the transform set should select which type of algorithm to transform the text. So I will say I will select ESP SHA HMAC. I will select ESP SHA HMAC. Okay, enter. Now I have to select mode, the mode of uh, what was the command? Okay, we will see the mode afterwards. Then, so whether my this thing has been created or not, proposal with ESP missing cipher. Okay, okay, I have to select the cipher thing also. To use it will use SHA-HMAC as the encryption algorithm with the cipher value. With the cipher value means what will be the cipher code that it will use. So first I will select the algorithm type. The algorithm type will be AES. Then it will select the SHA-MAC transform set. ESP SHA-HMAC. Okay. Now I have to select over here mode. So mode over here, there are two mode, the tunnel mode and the transport mode. So have you seen the difference between tunnel mode and the transport mode? Have I explained you the difference between the tunnel
No.
mode? Okay. So the difference between the tunnel mode and the transport mode is, see, whenever a packet is coming from a tunnel, if I am selecting a transport mode, okay, then the ESP packet, encapsulating security payload packet. See, payload encapsulation. So I will give you an example. Suppose I am having a packet. If I am selecting a transport mode, I am having a packet over here. Okay. Then what this will do, if I am selecting transport mode, what it will do, this is my payload. This is my payload. Then what it will do, it will just secure the payload ESP. It will add an ESP header. It will add an ESP header to the payload. But for my IP packet, there will be no encryption. There will be no protection for my IP packet. Okay. This is something when we are using a transport mode. Okay, IP protocol number is 50, and over here authentication integrity, if we say ESP authentication, and it looks into integrity and encryption. So whatever our data is there, only it will encrypt the data. It will leave the IP packet. Okay, every uh, packet which is moving from an IPsec tunnel, it will be having an IP packet. Okay, so it will only protect the payload. The transport mode will only protect the payload. But when we are using tunnel mode, the tunnel mode will add the ESP ESP over here also, or you can say it will add a ESP over here only, and it will protect the IP packet also and the payload also. So here there will be no ESP. It will be at very start of the packet. So whenever anything comes, it has to go via the ESP. So it means it is protecting the IP packet also and the payload, both the things. So this is the difference between the tunnel mode and the transport mode. So here I will be selecting transport mode. What I will be selecting? Transport mode. I'll be not selecting tunnel mode. I'll be selecting transport mode. Okay, mode transport, then exit. Now I have created a crypto ISEC-MP policy. I have created encryption. I have created the group. I have selected the group. I have created the key for the ISEC-MP policy. I have created the transform set. I have set the mode of the transport. Now what I have to do, I will create an access list. I will create an access list. Access list will give me that my whatever my IP addresses are there, they should be allowed. So I will say I will create an access list, IP access list extended. I will say any name CCNP. Okay. Then I will say permit any permit GRE any. Whatever the GRE tunnel, whatever the IP address that will be going through the GRE tunnel, you have to permit that IP addresses. Okay. Now I will map this crypto with the ISEC MP policy. So crypto map, I will give any name. Suppose I gave a name VPN. I have created a VPN. Then sequence number to insert into crypto map entry. I gave 10. Sequence number 10. You can give any sequence number. Okay. Then I will select which type of policy I want. I want IPsec ISEC MP policy. IPsec ISEC MP policy. This new crypto map will remain disabled until a peer and a valid access list have been configured. Okay. So I am inside the ISEC MP policy. Now I will match the address. I will say match address whatever is there in CCNP. Whatever is there in CCNP. See, it is giving me either I can give any number or either I can give the access list number. So I will give the access list number or name. So I've created an extended named access list. So I will give the name match address, whatever is there in that access list. Then I will say I will set the I will set what is my transform set. What is the name of my transform set? My transform set is having a name of Cisco 1. Okay. I will set my peer. Set peer. What who is whom I want to make the neighbor. Whom I want to make the neighbor. So what is the IP address of the neighbor? 192.160, sorry, the interface IP address 198.51.100.2. This will be my neighbor. Done. Done. Now, the last thing I will go inside the interface and I will implement this thing.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, can you scroll back a little bit, sir? I didn't see the commands.
Which command?
After VPN 10.
See, VPN 10, I have selected IPsec, ISEC MP as my policy. Okay. Then what I have done, I have matched the address. I have to match the address for this crypto mapping. Okay. So for match address, I have selected the access list. Whatever the address are given, whatever the addresses are permitted in the access list, match that addresses. So I have created an access list. I have set permit any. Then what I did, I have set the transform set. What is my transform set name? Cisco 1. Then I have set the peer IP address, the neighbor's IP address. This is my neighbor's IP address. Okay. Then now I will implement these all things on the interface. So what I have to say? I have to say crypto map, then the name of the map. What was the name of the map that I've created? I've created the map as VPN. VPN was my name. So what I will do, I will say VPN. That's it. Now do show history. Do show history. Okay. Show run. So these are the commands that I have given. Okay. These all are the commands that I have given.
So you mentioned that tunnel is better security than transport, right?
Sorry, come again.
You said that tunnel using the tunnel protocol is better than the transport.
Yes, but first we are seeing
So why are we using transport? Okay, okay,
we are just
okay,
seeing the transport thing. Then we can see the tunnel also.
okay, all right.
Okay, so this is what I have configured. I have created crypto ISEC MP policy 5 encryption. I have selected AES 256 group 2 crypto ISEC MP key Cisco address is 000 crypto ISEC IPsec transform set. I have created a transform set. Okay, then I have given the transform set should select the ESP as AES encryption algorithm and SHA-MAC will be the AES type. Then I have selected the mode. The mode is transfer mode of encryption will be transport. Okay, then I've created a crypto map. Crypto map. I've given the name and a sequence number. Then IPsec ISEC MP. IPsec ISEC MP will be my policy that I will be using. Then I have given the peer address, transform set, and match address. Then on the interface, I have assigned the things. So the same commands I have to give on to the R4's interface. Okay, the same commands I have to give, just this IP address will change. The IP address will be 192.0.2.1. Okay, rest all the commands will be same. The same commands I have to give on copy. I'll go on R4. Okay, enable show run. So I've created the policy, given the IP address. I'll say config terminal. The policy is correct, right? So I will just remove this thing. No. Then I will create another the same thing, the same configuration over here. ISEC MP key Cisco. The key should be same. Address is 0.0.0.0.0.0.0.0. Okay. Then I will create a transform set crypto IPsec transform set. The transform set name is Cisco1, and I will say ESP AES ESP SHA HMAC. Okay, I will say mode is my transport exit. Then the access list, IP access list extended, IP access list extended CCNP permit any permit GRE any exit. Then I will I will map the things crypto map with VPN in IPsec ISEC MP. Okay. Then I will match address whatever's there in CCNP. Just a second, guys. So I have matched the address of access list. Now I will set my transform set. What is my transform set? My transform set is Cisco1. Then my neighbor over here is my neighbor over here is so my peer address will be my neighbor address will be over here on R4 will be 192.0.2.1 exit. Now I will implement the same thing on the interface Ethernet 0/2 on R4. I will say crypto map VPN. That's it. Now to verify, see now what is the uh, this thing over here. You can see over here what output I have got over here. Crypto 6 ISEC MP on off. ISEC MP is on. Okay, to verify I have to give the command show crypto ISEC MP SA Security Association. Okay. Show crypto IPsec 51.2. Local is this 51.2 and my remote is 2.1. Okay, so these are the MTU size. Origin is ACL, access list. Crypto map tag is VPN. VPN. Why this is not giving me the output? Show crypto ISEC MP SA. Show crypto ISEC MP SA. Show crypto ISEC MP peers. Why it is not giving me default policy? Show ISEC MP key. Pre-shared key is Cisco. Why it is not showing me the policy? See, now I got the policy is IKE policy. Okay, encryption algorithm used is AES encryption algorithm 256 bits. Okay, hash algorithm is secured hash standard. Diffie-Hellman algorithm, group number 2 I have selected, 1024 bit. Lifetime is 84. Lifetime is 84. 86 400 seconds. Okay. So it is not giving me the association, but I can see the policy. I can see the profile. Is not giving me the profile peers. Okay. Show crypto ISEC MP policy. Okay. Policy, both the sides should be same. It is the same, then why it is not giving me the this thing? So what I will do, show run. I'll say crypto ISEC MP policy 5. I'll say encryption AES, then 256. 256. I'll say group 2. Show run. should give me the output. Show crypto ISEC MP SA Security Association. It will show me the tunnel that has been formed. So there is some mistake, I think so. So run. I've created the ISEC MP policy, Cisco transform set, HMAC, no transport. Show crypto IPsec SA. Here it is giving me the tunnel. This is my local and this is my destination crypto endpoint. But why it is not giving me the association of ISEC MP? It is giving me the IPsec tunnel. The VPN tag, the tag is VPN. Local address is this. My current peer is I have formed a neighborship with this. If I go and verify show IP OSPF neighbor, I should get over here 4.4.4.4 also. There is some mistake.
What is the configuration other one?
Sorry,
No, no. Are you not supposed to advertise the tunnel in OSPF?
then got you come again. I have to not advertise the.
I said,
No, I've
well,
already
I don't know,
advertised
but
these interfaces. I've already advertised these interfaces. So there is no need to advertise it in the OSPF.
Other router config.
Sorry,
Other router config.
there is nothing to be there on other router configs. R1 and R
I'm
should be
saying mismatch, right? So,
on R4 you are saying.
no, whatever is the peer for this. What is the peer here? R2, R4.
Where you saw it is mismatch.
So that's what you said, right?
Might be there is some
ESP
mistake. There is something that policy has been
mismatch, right?
yes.
ISIMP policy mismatch.
So run, or you can say show IPsec, show crypto IPsec. Let's say the policy is over here. It is using priority as 5 AES. Here also I will open the policy.
So both are using transport mode, sir.
There is no issue. Both should use the same mode only. Okay, what we can do, will reload this router, both the routers. R1 and R4, reload. Okay. Enable show IP OSPF networks. So I'm having the basic configuration over here that is configured. Okay, I'm having the neighborship with R2. Also on R4, I will be having the neighborship with R3. Show IP OSPF neighbors. Okay, so what we will do, so it's still in two-way state, still in two-way state. Okay, now the adjacency is full. So what we will do, we'll configure once again the commands. Okay, interface tunnel 1, I'll say IP address is my 192.168.0.1, 255.255.255.252. If I'm taking 252, I'm getting a block size of 4. I can use 1 and 2, right? Tunnel source. Tunnel source is my 192.0.2.1, or I can give the Ethernet 0/0, and tunnel destination is 192 dot or 198.51.100.2. So 2 only, right? Tunnel destination. Okay, exit. This is my R1. I've created a tunnel on R1. Let me check the IP address is show IP interface brief. Source is my 2.1. Tunnel I have created. We'll verify one by one. Show IP interface brief. I've given the tunnel destination as this address only, right? 198.51.100.2. Okay. Sure. Interface tunnel 1. I'll say IP address is 192.168.0.2 255.255.252. Tunnel source is what?
I didn't take the IP address.
Then took the IP address. Tunnel source is my 198.51, or I can say Ethernet 0/2. Tunnel destination will be my 192.0.2.1. Exit. Now I've created the tunnel. Now I'll go on R1 and I'll create the policy crypto ISEC MP crypto ISEC MP policy. I'll give the number 10. Then I'll say encryption AES 128. Let me select 128 now. And group 2. I'll say say group 2 is fine. Then I'll say I will create a transform set crypto ISEC-MP transform set, or I will create a key first. Key is Cisco and the address is 0.0.0.0.0.0.0. Then I'll create the transform set ISEC-MP transform set, sorry, IPsec transform set, and I'll say Cisco 1 is my name of the transform set. ESP AES, I'll say 128. Use 128-bit encryption. Then mode is my transport exit. Then I will create an access list. Access list extended CCNP. CCNP. Then I will say permit GRE any exit. Then I will map the crypto map. The mapping should be carefully done. Any word I will create Cisco sequence to insert into crypto map entry. I'll say 1, I'll say 10. Then use IPsec ISEC-MP. Okay. Then match address CCNP. Right. Match address CCNP. Then set transform set. Transform set name is Cisco 1. Set peer. I'm on R1 198.51.100.2. Exit. Interface Ethernet 0/0. I will say crypto map Cisco. So crypto ISEC-MP. Do it on R4. The same configuration I will do it on R4. Crypto ISEC-MP policy I will say 10. Encryption AES 128. Group 2 exit. I'll say crypto ISEC-MP key Cisco and the address 0.0.0.0.0.0.0. Then crypto IPsec transform set. The name of the transform set is Cisco 1 and ESP AES should use 128. Mode is transport. Mode is transport. Exit. IP access list extended CCNP. I'll say permit GRE any exit. Then I'll say I'll map the crypto map Cisco 10 IP set ISEC-MP. Then match address in CCNP set transform set Cisco 1 set peer 192.0.2.1 exit interface Ethernet 0/2. I'll say crypto map Cisco. Show crypto ISEC-MP. What is the issue? Show crypto ISEC-MP policy. Policy is same. Why it is not giving me the security association? So so I'll troubleshoot this thing. What is the issue? I think so. I'm missing some commands. I'm not getting what is the command right now. I'll troubleshoot this thing and we'll get back to you. It's the client server, the SMP keys is to okay, we'll get back to this thing. I'll troubleshoot this thing and we'll get back to this thing. We will not waste the time. We'll move to the next topic. So if you remember, we have started virtualization. Okay, we have seen some things in virtualizations. Okay, so now we will see some more things regarding virtualization, network virtualization. So we have two things in network virtualization. One is known as Lisp and VXLAN. Okay, now what is Lisp? What do you mean by Lisp? Anything?
These are new topics, huh? It was not in the old CCNA and CCNA.
Sorry?
It was not in the old CCNA also. CCNA,
Okay. So Lisp
or was
is,
it? I'm asking, as in I don't know.
it was there in the old CCNP also. So Lisp is, you can say, a way for us to identifying a network device using a couple of identifiers. So you can say you have couple of identifiers in which one identifier that identifies the location of the device on the internet and the other identifier will identify the device within that location. Okay, so Lisp is something, if I use the full form of Lisp is location ID separation protocol. Location ID separation protocol. So see over here, when we use Lisp, we have these all things. Okay, location ID separation protocol Lisp, we have endpoint ID, router locator, map resolver, map server, ingress tunnel router, egress tunnel router. Okay, so whenever we are why we use and why we use this thing. So see why we use this Lisp. See, whenever we are using a BGP, and in BGP the routing table on the internet is is in very big size. Okay, we have several hundred thousands routes in full BGP routing table. Okay, so to get it's getting out of control. So we can use Lisp for that. In that scenario, we can use Lisp to get out of that. Okay, to get out of that thing we can use Lisp. So if I go in depth of Lisp, so you can say going going out of the multiple internet service provider, you can say if we go and take this see the size of the internet routing internet BGP routing tables. Okay, we can see the size of the internet routing table at the time of it is very big. It is very big. It is very big. We will be having some number of entries, some 8,000, 80,000, 90,000, 1 lakh entries in the routing table. Okay, now that configuration might be very difficult for us, for the router also, to find the path. Okay, so we have a problem with scalability with the internet routing table, but with the help of Lisp, we can we can separate the things. Okay, Lisp is useful, you can say, in other environments too, like in mobility environments. If you want to, if you don't want to sit at one place, and if we are roaming, or you can say in the Internet of the Things application. You can use Lisp, but it was originally that you can say it was originally designed to address the internet routing table scalability issue only. Okay, now what the Lisp does, Lisp will separate a single IP address into two parts. It will separate a single IP address into two parts. What it will do, it will create a endpoint and it will create a routing locator, RLOC. An endpoint identifier or an EID you can say, or routing locator or an RLOC you can say. Okay, what this will do, this will allow for you can say a device to move from one location on the internet to the other location, and it will keep its endpoint identifier on its EID. Okay, while updating its routing locator, its RLOC. So suppose in this case, if my client A want to communicate with client B, want to communicate with client B. Now you can say currently the client B is on site 2. The client B is on site Lisp site 2, you can say it is on Lisp site 2, and client A is in Lisp site 1. Okay, and the server at the Lisp site 2, this is my server at the Lisp site 2. It is having an IP address of 192.168.1.100. This is my server, and the server is having an IP address of 192.168.1.100. Okay, Now, sorry, this is my server 100.1. This is my rlog. This is my server. This is my rlog, which is having the IP address of 198.51.100.1. 198.51.100.1, and this will be my rlog routing locator. This will be my routing locator. Okay, now Lisp, if I'm using Lisp, then to reach my client B, I have to reach this server. I have to reach this rlog router, you can say. Okay, and the way to reach this rlog router is known by this MS or MR server. MS or MR server. Okay, the way you can say MR means map resolver. Map resolver. Map resolver knows the client B lives at the IP address is that the router at the list B. This is the router at the list B. Okay, and client B is reside over here. Okay, the map, see what we will do, we will send an update that I am 192.168.1.1 to this rlog router. Then this router will send an update, an entry to the MR map resolver, map server, MS map server, that 192.168.1.0 network is at rlog 198.51.100.1. Is it as it is at rlog 198.51.100.1. Got it? Now they register their information over here. They register their information from the map resolver, and the map resolver is getting the information from the map server. Okay, so as I given you the example, as I told you that if my client B on Lisp 2, if my client B on Lisp 2 want to register its map server, then how it will go? It will go to this router, rlog router. It will send an update to the rlog router. One.network is over here. Okay, then this rlog router will map this thing with the server. Got it? And now once we know the rlog where which is the rlog router that we are sending, then the packets can be moved between these two rlog routers directly. Okay, and the packets will be, this router is known as ingress ITR router, ingress tunnel router, and this is known as egress tunnel router. This is known as egress tunnel router. Understood? So Lisp will be useful when we want our routing protocol, our routing table should be, it is very large routing table, but it will be divided with rlog. It will be divided with rlog and EIDs. It will be divided with rlogs, routing locator, servers, and EIDs. Okay, so it will separate my networks from other networks. It will separate my networks from other networks. So now example, if client A wants to communicate with client B, so the Lisp router at Lisp site 1, this is my Lisp router, is going to query the map resolver. It will say that give me the destination of client, this IP address 1.100. Now map resolver is having the information that one.network is where, one.network is at 100.1 rlog, at 100.1 rlog. Okay, so Now what happens, the client A goes up to the RLOC router, or you can say RLOC at the IP address, and it will directly the client will go to the ITR router at the Lisp site 1, and it's going to send the traffic over the RLOC that it was told to go by the resolver. So whatever the resolver said, you have to send. If you want to go to one dot network, then you have to send the data to this RLOC IP address. This RLOC IP address. Once you send the data to this RLOC IP address, you can reach the client B on Lisp site 2. Understood? Hello. So we have
Yes.
multiple things. Lisp, it's endpoint, routing locator, map resolver, map server, ingress tunnel router, egress tunnel router. So this thing in depth we will be learning in the CCI level, because over here we are just having the CCNP. Over here we are just having the what is Lisp. Okay, they have just included what is Lisp, the definition, and what all are the things that are there in Lisp: endpoint, identifier, routing locator, and all the things. Okay, now the next thing that we have is VXLAN. What is VXLAN? VXLAN, if I say you the full form, virtual extensible local area network. Virtual extensible local area network. Now if I say you with my traditional network, traditional Ethernet switch, I can say I can have over 12 bit of VLAN field and over 4000 VLANs. Correct? If I am using my traditional Ethernet switch, I will be having something, we can support a little over 4000 VLANs only. Okay, because we are having the the VLAN field is of 12 bits long. Okay, so but nowadays in today's network, we might have a data center with lots of virtualization and need to isolate server machine, you can say several virtual machines from other virtual machines. So in that scenario, we could easily run out of VLANs, because we will be having multiple virtual machines, okay, in our data center. And if we are having multiple virtual machines, then we have to keep them in different VLANs. So we will be running out of VLANs. So then this concept is introduced, that you can use a concept known as VXLAN. VXLAN. What we can use? VXLAN. Now, what does the VXLAN does? They you can say they let us have over 16 billion or different identifiers instead of 4000. Okay, more than 16 billions or something, you can say they will give me the VLAN identifiers. Okay, and you can say the way VXLAN can do that is by encapsulating our layer 2 or even layer 3 traffic and adding a VXLAN network identifier. VXLAN network identifier on it. So how they will work? They will add a VNI VXLAN network identifier for each VLAN. For each VLAN, they will add VNI, and this VNI field is of 24-bit long. That's why it gives us more than 16 billion plus VXLAN network identifiers. Okay, now those VXLANs also can run over an existing physical network infrastructure also, and also they can run in the new physical infrastructure also. Okay, now uh, So VXLAN is something, it will give me number of VLANs. Now if I go in my overlay and underlay network, okay, if I go in the underlay and overlay network, so you can see the underlay network. This is my physical connections to the switches that I have made. This is my something physical connections that I have made to create an entirely different topology, you can say. Now here I'm using an underlay network, but we are logically creating a tunnel. So what I've done, I've taken some switches over here, and what I've done, I've created logical tunnels. You can see these are the logical tunnels between these switches. These are logical tunnel between these switches. You can say we can create logical tunnels between select switches to create a totally different topology, and that is known as my overlay network. That is known as my overlay network, where I'm using my tunnels, okay. Now this thing we typically see in the data center, where we use a spine leaf design. If we got a spine leaf design, if I show you the diagram of spine leaf design, you can see over here, if I am using a spine leaf, if I'm using a spine leaf diagram, okay, you can see we have got our nodes like our servers. These are my servers, these are my nodes, these are my some servers, you can say, connecting to leaf switches, and those leaf switches, they are interconnect by going through a spine. Okay, the spine switches allow any leaf to get to other leaf in only single hop. See, if I want to go to this leaf, I can go in a single hop. Okay, so this is something a spine leaf design. If I go over here, I can see we just have to go through one spine, from one leaf to one spine, okay, because every leaf switch is connected to every spine switch, and the device that does our VXLAN encapsulation is called a virtual ethernet module. You can say virtual ethernet module, or VEM, virtual ethernet module. Now each WEM has an IP address. Each WEM will be having an IP address. This leaf switches will be having a WEM, and this WEM will be having an IP address, and the IP address, it's assigned to the special interface that is known as VTAP. VTAP. VXLAN tunnel endpoint. VXLAN tunnel endpoint. This is the special interface that will be created for VXLAN, and the WEM will be having an IP address that will be assigned to this interface, VTAP interface. Now this each VTAP is associated with one or more VNIs. So VTAP on different switches, they can temporarily bring up a tunnel and pass traffic between themselves also. Okay. Now, you can say another benefit of that VXLAN gives us is that if we are sending a traffic over a port channel, suppose I'm having an ether channel. Okay, I've configured an ether channel and I'm sending a traffic over a port channel, where we got a multiple links, you can say, making up a single logical link. Instead of just using one link, the VXLAN switches know how to load balance the traffic across all the different links in the port channel. Got it? Now my VXLAN will be knowing that how to load balance the traffic between all the links. Okay, now what it will do, it can dramatically reduce the congestion in the data center, you can say. But an issue we have is that we do with traffic for which we don't know the destination. what we will do if we don't know the destination or destination address. Suppose I am having a destination and I don't know the destination, then what this VXLAN will do? If I go and consider the regular switch scenario, if I go and consider the regular switch scenario, what my regular switch will do? If I go and consider the regular switch scenario, if I am not having any destination address, then what my regular switch will do? It's going to send out an ARP broadcast, okay, to all the connected interfaces, my regular switch. Now, what about my multicast? What about unknown unicast? What if we don't know where somebody lives? How do we get to them? Okay, so what we can do for all that type of traffic called, you can say this type of all the traffic, this type of traffic is known as BUM traffic. BUM. BUM, broadcast unknown multicast. Broadcast unknown unicast and multicast. Okay, so we have got different approaches for handling. Okay, but in our example we will consider using multicast. We will only use multicast. Okay, now if we are using multicast, now what we can do is we can have this different VTEP IP addresses. Okay, VTEP IP addresses that will join a multicast group. Okay, now you might be wondering that do we have to have a multicast group for each VNI? No, we don't. We can have multiple VNI belonging to one VTEP, to the same multicast group, you can say, to the same multicast group, because my WEM themselves, they are going to look at the VNI identifier before sending the traffic out.
Okay. So the VEMs can be multiple. Is it only one VEM for a leaf switch, or can be multiple VEMs?
Sorry, come again, Dade?
The VEM, can it be? Is it just one VEM per switch?
You're asking me it is one WEM per switch. Yes, the WEM will
Yes.
be one WEM per switch. Okay, but
Okay.
it is not that the VNI will be belonging to only one WEM. The VNI can be belonging to multiple groups. Okay, multiple
Okay.
multicast groups.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, now
VNI. What's VNI full? The virtual network identifier, right?
identifier, virtual network
Yeah.
identifier.
Okay.
Okay, now if we go in this example on the screen, what is the server 1 wants to communicate with server 2? Server 1 is over here, server 2 is over here. This is the MAC address of server 1, this is the MAC address of server 2. Now we are connected in some spine leaf architecture, but I am not giving you all, I have not shown you all the spine and leaf switches. I've just shown you the source and destination. Okay, now you can see on the screen that the table shows uh, it will maintain the MAC address, VNI number, and VTAP details. The VNI number and VTAP details. So leap switch 1. This is leap switch 1 and it is having a VTAP 192.168 1.11. Here it is 1.33. Okay. Now server 1 is going to send out an ARP broadcast. It will send an ARP broadcast because it is not having the, it does not know where is this 10.1.1.200. Okay, see, it knows that I have to reach over here, but it does not know the MAC address of this. So switch will have the MAC address table. See over here, it will see the MAC address table, but it does not know where this MAC address is, on which interface it is connected. Okay, so it will make an entry that the AAAA MAC address, server A, is having a VNI number 1010. It is having a VNI number 1010. Okay, and it want to go to where it want to go to 10.1.1.200, but it is not having the, this switch is not having the destination, so it is sending over here. This will make this will form this table. This spine switch will form this table, you can say, and he will say that I have just learned the MAC address that is on Ethernet 1/1, that is on Ethernet 1/1, and that switch also has a mapping table that says VLAN 10. It is in VLAN 10 to which the server 1 belongs to, and maps to the VLAN VNI 1010. See, this is 1000 and this is my VLAN number. This is my VLAN number. This is my VLAN number. Okay, so now if we have a VNI identifier, okay, now just a VLAN identifier, we are having a VLAN identifier. This is not just a VLAN identifier. Okay, now what this will do, this switch will do, it will send the multicast group, it will send to the multicast group that other switches joined, because it's a member of a multicast group. So we are pretending that the multicast group number is 239 something over here. See, I have given over here the multicast group number is 239. Broadcast to the multicast group is 239 1.1.10, and all the switches, all the leaf switches are the member of this multicast group. Now what this spine switch will do, it will broadcast, it will send this packet, this request to all the multicast group members. Okay, now when it gets the broadcast ARP sent via multicast group, it's going to flood it out all the other ports. Got it? It will flood it out all the other ports. Got it? So now it reaches to the server 2 over here. It reaches to the request reaches to the server 2. Now it will check that the IP address is 10.1.1.200. Okay, now the same thing, this switch, this server 2 will say the packet is for me. It will send a reply. The packet is for me. It will send it to the leaf switch. The leaf switch will again update. See, the server 2 responds, which is MAC address BBBBB. The leaf S3 switch 3 knows that the 10.1.1.2 is one of its port. So it sends an ARP reply and identifies itself as VTAP to receive traffic destined to B.B.B.B. What happened now? The spine switch got the information that if I want to go, if any packet is destined, if anyone want to go to the destination B.B.B.B.B, then the VNI number is this. See, the VNI number is same on both the things, and the VTAP interface, VXLAN tunnel interface is this. I have to send to this tunnel interface, VTAP tunnel, VTAP interface, you can say. My spine switch will form a tunnel between this switch, and it will send through this VTAP. Got it? To this VTAP address. So if now again
So this is all automatic.
yeah, this is automatic as our switch runs. Okay, as the normal traditional switch does the ARP things. Okay, this is something, but we have to assign the VTAP this thing VTAP IP addresses, that this is the VTAP IP address of this interface. Okay, and we have to keep this server or any machine in any VLAN. Okay, then if we keep it in any VLAN, the switch will make it, the spine switch will create a VNI number for that. The VNI number on all the switches will be same for the same VLAN. For the same VLAN, the this will be same. The VNI number will be same. Understood? So we are just having the theory part of VXLAN in our this practical. See, now what will happen? There will be a tunnel created between leaf spine and spine leaf. Okay, and VLAN 10 will be mapped with this VNI now. VLAN 10 will be mapped with this VNI. We will create a tunnel and all the traffic will move with this VTAP tunnel, from this VTAP tunnel only. Understood? So this is something, an extension to our normal VLAN concept, VXLAN. Okay, so that we will get,
Okay,
yeah,
hold on. Sorry, I just want to clarify. Okay, so because they are on VLAN 10, they can communicate together, but it's now left to the administrators to make sure that the server that wants to connect to server one that wants to connect to server two will have a VLAN 10 assigned, and also the VTEP IP addresses
correct,
specified, so
correct. So
that
that is the
when
reason
the
I have
when
just
the
given all the written all the things over here. What all things we have to configure on both the side, I have already written over here. These all things you have to configure on both the side.
okay, all right,
Okay.
yeah.
See, this is something, our normal VLAN configurations only. Okay. Now, the normal behavior of VLAN, what is the normal behavior of VLAN? If the switch, if my VLAN 10 is there on some other switch also, then I can communicate with this. It should be in the same network, I have to say. It should be in the same network. I can communicate from server 1 to server 2. If it is in other, if it is kept on other switch also. Okay, but if we want to communicate between two VLANs, VLAN 10 and 20, then what we have to use? We have to use inter VLAN routing, IVR, correct? So this is the same thing, but it is an extension of the VLAN concept. We are using VXLAN communication now. In VLANs, we were getting some 4,000 number of VLANs only. Now over here, in, well, I'm using VXLAN, we can get 16 billion or something, million, billion, something VLAN identifiers. Understood? Any doubt in VLAN,
Yes.
VXLAN,
No.
sorry. So this is something our VXLAN things. Okay, we are having this theory part. Now we can move to the next topic. We can see troubleshooting trunks. So if we are troubleshooting trunks, so what all are the common issues? The common issues if we are troubleshooting trunks, that can be encapsulation mismatch. Encapsulation mismatch means, what is the encapsulation mismatch? Encapsulation mismatch is something like, you can say, there are two types of encapsulation. One is ISL or IEEE. So which type of encapsulation we are using? Which type of encapsulation we are using? It is very important. Okay, so one issue that we can face is encapsulation mismatch. Okay, So now Cisco's proprietary trunking protocol is what? ISL. Okay, we have inter-switch link. ISL is my Cisco's uh, switching protocol. You can say proprietary trunking protocol. Now you can say it was very popular. ISL was very popular in many years ago. You can say it was very popular on the Cisco devices. Now Cisco recommended it, but in more recent years. Now Cisco has changed, or you can say gravitated towards the industry standard, that is .1q, IEEE .1q. Okay, but you can say you might see ISL as an option, and with ISL we have you can say I have if we have studied the ISL thing, we have 30 byte of information, 30 byte of header that's added to every frame. Okay, especially you can say there's 26 byte of payload and then 4 byte of checksum on top of that, so it became 30 byte in each frame. Now that is very terrible because it's much more than efficient to use the industry standard, because my IEEE.1q as we you remember if you remember, we have talked in our CCNA also that IEEE will add only 4 byte of tag to each and every frame. How many byte? 4 byte of tag. Okay, 4 byte of tag to every frame, and as long as that frame does not belong to the native VLAN. If it is belonging to native VLAN, then it will add some more bits. Okay, now another issue, the first issue is encapsulation mismatch. So we have to see which type of encapsulation on both the sides we are using on switch 1 and switch 2. Now another issue is trunking mode mismatch. Trunking mode mismatch. Now let us think about a review how trunks can be dynamically set up using DTP. If you are using DTP, then dynamic trunking protocol, you can say one mode we have as an access mode. If we have one mode as an access mode, okay, if we configure a Cisco Catalyst switch for access mode, then we are saying that this is not going to be a trunk. It does not matter what the far end is trying to do. Okay, what the another end connected is trying to do, switch to, whether it is making it trunk or whether it is dynamic desirable, dynamic auto, or anything. If I have made switch ones any port as access port, then it does not matter whether my switch 2 is doing whatever, whether it is configuring desirable, auto, trunk, anything. We are not going to be trunk in this situation. We are not going to be trunk in this situation. We are specially an access port. We are specially an access port. We are going to connect one device that's living on one VLAN, and we are going to be doing no, we are going to be doing trunking. Now another option would be set a mode as trunk. This is another option. Switch one will be port of the switch one will be mode maken as trunk. Here we are saying that you are trunk. This is the exact opposite of access. Okay, we are saying you by definition are a trunk. It does not matter whether the far end is doing, you are a trunk. What the far end is doing, you are a trunk. Now the other side, if other side is dynamic desirable, or if it is dynamic auto, or if it is trunk, then we will form trunk. If my one side of a switch is trunk, okay, now a dynamic desirable says I'm willing to be a trunk. I'm willing to be a trunk. Okay, if other side is willing to be a trunk, you can say if the other side will be willing to be a trunk, and we are going to use with DTP Now the negotiation will be done over here. Okay, in these three scenarios, we will be forming a trunk. Now, in the fourth scenario, if we are using dynamic desirable, then also I am forming trunk. Dynamic desirable, dynamic auto, then also I am forming trunk. But if I'm using dynamic auto on both the side, I cannot form trunk. So I have to look trunking mode mismatch, which type of trunking I am using, which type of trunking I am using. Understood? So this can be the second issue that will be there when that will be there when we are troubleshooting the 802.1q trunks. Okay. Now the third thing is allowed VLANs, allowed VLAN mismatch. All VLAN default is all VLANs are allowed. We have seen a concept of pruning in which we used to allow specific VLANs. Okay, specify VLANs to be allowed or denied can improve security and performance. So we have seen something as pruning, okay, in which it can help us with security, it can help with performance, but it needs to be matched on both the sides of the trunk, or we can run it into say some issue. If we are not matching the pruning on both the side, then there will be a issue with the trunk link. Now remember that a native VLAN is that special VLAN with a .1q trunk that does not add those four byte of tag to a frame. Native VLAN traffic will be always what it will be always untagged information. It will be always untagged information. Okay, and by default it is going to VLAN 1. Okay, but for security purpose we have seen we can change the VLAN to some other number like 199 or anything. Okay, and if you do that, you want to make sure that it matches on the both sides. So we have seen how to change the native VLAN also, and in our CCNA syllabus. Now these are some issues that you can get when you are configuring a trunk link. So you have to remember, if you are getting any issue in the trunk links, the trunk is not forming, then you have to check first the encapsulation, whether on both the side the encapsulation is matching. The second thing you have to see is the trunking mode mismatch. The third thing you have to see is the allowed VLAN mismatch. So these three are the common issues that you can have. And the fourth one is native VLAN mismatch. You can say native VLAN mismatch. If there is native VLAN mismatch also, then also you cannot form a trunk. You cannot form a trunk link. Understood? What all things you have to consider whenever you are troubleshooting and trunk link. Now we are having some common issues with our troubleshooting in ether channel. If we configure ether channel, so in ether channel also we can troubleshoot what all issues can be there with ether channel. So if I go in my file, troubleshooting ether channel. Okay, so the first steps you have to see port configuration mismatch. Port configuration mismatch. What do you mean by port configuration mismatch? Just a second. Huh? So what do you mean by port configuration mismatch? So there are some points in port configuration mismatch. Either the speed is misconfigured on both the side. You can say they are configured differently in terms of speed, or you can say duplex setting. The second thing can be duplex setting, or you can say speed duplex setting. Then you can say trunk
Protocol.
mode, then native VLAN, then allowed VLANs. So port configuration mismatch means uh, the links are configured differently. The links are configured differently. Either it can be via speed or duplex settings, trunk mode, native VLAN, or allowed VLANs. Okay, you can say it can be different trunk mode or different native VLAN. So now we have to set up all these things same. You can say we have to make the speed same on bandwidth. You can say we have to configure the bandwidth of all the link in the uh, ether channel should be same. It you can say the trunk mode should be same. Okay, the native VLAN on both the switches should be same. Allowed VLANs should be, the pruning should be same on both the switches. So when we are checking the ether channel troubleshooting, this can be the first thing that we can see. Then the second thing that we can see while troubleshooting is uh, you can say misconfiguration in our PACP or LACP settings. PACP or LACP setting. Misconfigurations in our PACP or LACP settings. Suppose what can be the misconfiguration in the PACP and LACP configuration? What is PACP? PACP is port aggregation protocol. That is Cisco proprietary protocol that will allow us to form a channel and allow a link to join an Ethernet channel bandwidth, correct? Now, if we set one or either side that we are giving running PAGP, we have to see that one of the site is set as desirable, okay, and the other side is set to auto. It is set to auto. If both the side are set to auto, then we cannot have the port channel configured. So in PAGP, we have to see that we are configuring the one side of the switch should be always desirable. Okay, one switch should run the desirable mode and another switch can be in auto mode. Both the switch can be in desirable, but both the switch cannot be in auto. The same thing will be there for LACP also, but the LACP, the concept changes to active and passive. Okay, the same thing we have to do in LACP also. Understood? So this is something misconfiguration of our PAGP and LACP setting. If we have misconfigured our PACP and LACP setting, then there will be the problem with our ether channel. Okay. Then the last thing that we can say suboptimal uh, load balancing algorithm. So if you remember when I have shown you in the practical in CCNA, if you have seen, if I used to give an command show ether channel summary, I used to get an output in this format, some things like destination to IP. Then I used to get destination to MAC. Then I used to get something like source destination IP, then source destination MAC, then source IP, source MAC. Okay, so this is something my load balancing algorithm it uses. Like I have shown you the second thing, LACP, it is we can use active and passive. Okay, now this is suboptimal load balancing, suboptimal load balancing algorithm. Now PC was load balancing all our you can say, you know, if I take an example, my PC was load balancing all over different farms. Okay, now we have to see this load balancing things when we are configuring the ether channel. Okay, when we are configuring the ether channel, the destination MAC address, the source MAC address, the destination IP, the destination source, destination to source MAC address mapping. Okay, we have to do Boolean operation. Okay, exclusive OR operation, and we have to make these all things perfect. Okay, so this is something that is done automatically. So, but if you are troubleshooting an ether channel, if ether channel is not configured properly, it is giving some issue, then you have to see these all things. Whether my ports are configured with all this configuration properly, speed, duplex setting, trunk mode, native VLAN, allowed VLAN. Then the second thing is is there any misconfiguration in our PACP or LACP protocol settings? Okay, then suboptimal load balancing. So these all things we need to consider when we are using our uh, troubleshooting steps. You can say these are my troubleshooting steps that I can use when I am troubleshooting my ether channel, when I'm troubleshooting my ether channel. Okay, understood? Any doubt, guys? Okay, so we'll stop over here.